This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome you guys back to another episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before I get started here today, I want to remind you guys, as always, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, make sure you never miss an episode, make sure you're always on top of whenever we drop our latest stuff. If you could as well, please give us a 5-star rating as a nice review. It'll be very appreciated, very helpful. Allow us to see what you guys like, dislike, all that fun stuff. And also, speaking of fun, if you're on social media, we are also on social media, so we can communicate there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you are, we are. So you can come find us, come talk, chat, debate, discuss. Whatever you want to do, we can do. So we are more than happy to connect with you guys in that way. And first, I don't know if we need to give a round of applause, a shout out, a salute, whatever. But thank you, Chris Paul. And if you didn't know, or you missed this part of the broadcast, he was the one that broached the idea to Adam Silver about trying to change up the format a little bit of the All-Star game this year. I know I've talked about on this podcast the All-Star format changes. I don't know necessarily I hated it per se, but I just wasn't sure how it was going to work. Starting the quarter over every quarter seemed kind of confusing, and also like the fact that in theory, one team could lose out on charity could lose out on all of the money. Didn't really sit well with me. Plus, I wasn't sure how the going up to 24 points higher than the highest team score was going to work out. But all in all, I would have to say, and I think it's been pretty unanimous across the board in saying this, the All-Star game was a success. I mean, it was when this idea I think was pitched and brought up and discussed, and they were talking about changing it. This is probably the best case scenario they could have had. I mean, you had an exciting game, a close game, back and forth, down to the wire. You got to see all the rules play out in live time, and you got to see how they impacted the game, and all the impacts, I would have to say, were very positive. I mean, the first half was still pretty standard for All-Star games in terms of, like, not a whole lot of defense, a lot of alley-oops, a lot of open threes, not a whole lot of transition defense. They're not really calling any fouls, so people just trying to go up and down the court, all that fun stuff. We'll break it down a little bit more after I just give my overall review. But then third quarter, intensity picked up, especially there at the end. And then the fourth quarter, obviously, if you watched, then you know. But if you didn't, it almost felt like a playoff game out there. I mean, obviously, it makes sense. There's good players on both sides. It's it's the best of the best. So they're gonna be playing hard. And obviously, because of the best, their skills and their talents are matched up more evenly, I should say, the talents. And because of that, obviously, it was going to be close, it was going to be tight, it was going to be intense, pressure-packed, all those different adjectives, if you will. And, yeah, it led to the very ending of the game was a little anticlimactic, which I think they will have to change in the future. I don't know how soon they will, but in my opinion, they should change it so it doesn't end the way it did tonight. But other than that, all in all, I think it was. I'd have to give it. I mean, if you're gonna rate it, I don't really do the whole rating stuff. But if you're gonna rate it, you have to go to A, 9 out of 10. Shout out to D Wade. We'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, just stuff like you'd have to. I don't know anybody that really had any complaints to say about it. Like I said, other than the ending, which we'll get to in a second. But first quarter, Team LeBron came out. On fire. I mean, I don't want to say on fire because, again, All-Star game, not a whole lot of defense being played. But they came out very strong. You were like, oh, Lord. I mean, that was the funny thing. After the
teams were picked, a lot of people were questioning Giannis's GM skills just because it seemed like a lot of the quote-unquote more talented players were on not the West side, I almost said the West and East, even though that is how the starters lined up, which was like pretty funny. But overall, it just on the team LeBron as opposed to Team Giannis, seemed like he had a lot more of like the people you would describe as more talented or especially more useful in an All-Star game format. So they came. I think they lost the first quarter by 12. 53-41. So you were just like, oh Lord, this is going to be bad. Team LeBron is going to run them out the gym. It's not going to be that close. Blah blah blah. Like we weren't really sure, but then, and this is I think a part of the reason why this happened is because of the format changed. It seemed as if Giannis, being the team captain, which makes a whole lot of sense, didn't want his team to go down 2-0, and then obviously his chair to go down 200,000-0. And he came out, and I think he played like the first 6-7 minutes of that quarter. It was like dominant. Had at one point had like 18 of the teams, like they had 20 points. They ended up scoring 51, capped off by Trae Young at the buzzer from like half court. And he was also really good. It was a shame he couldn't play more in the fourth, but we'll get to why that probably happened in a second. But yeah, so you would see that, like, obviously because of that, people, I don't want to say people, but Giannis clearly started caring a lot more in the second quarter than most people. Because in the first half of the games, no, you're still doing, there's still a whole lot of, there's a lot of theatrics and artistry in terms of, like, they're trying to, like, put on a show for the people. They're not really worried about, making sure we win this quarter, make sure we cut into this lead. Obviously, you don't want to lose, so you're trying to cut into the lead. But at the end of the day, it didn't really matter if you won or lost a quarter. You were just trying to like I said, put on the show. And Giannis was trying to do that, but also in turn, make sure he won that quarter because, again, he didn't want his team to be down 2-0. So I think that aspect of it, in terms of like the winning each quarter, definitely helped make the game not necessarily competitive because they blew them out in the second quarter, but it changed the mindset of the players where Team Giannis knew, all right, we need to kind of show up in this quarter, if you will. Not to say they didn't show up in the first quarter, but it was like, all right, we need to make a statement and make a point that like we're not just going to get rolled over here. And that may not have been there had it just been like, oh, they're down 12 normally and they're trying to make a comeback. But obviously, winning the quarter per se wouldn't have mattered. And I think, obviously, a lot of that extended from Giannis because I don't think LeBron or many of the other Team LeBron starters got into, like, later in the quarter. A lot of the bench guys were in for a while. And that was, like I said, that was not the case with Giannis. He was out there. He was out there with some other, well, not bench guys, reserves. But he was out there and he was dominating. And just because, like I said, he wanted to make a point that, hey, no, we're not just going to be pushovers here. So that helped a lot. And going into the second half, you could really see it start to tighten up, especially there at the end when I think Team LeBron was down in the quarter, and obviously they were down in the game at that point because they got outscored by 21 points in that second quarter. So they came into the quarter down 9, and Giannis' team had the lead, so they were about to go down 2-1, so like 200,000 to 100,000, and then also be down a lot more than 9 heading into the fourth quarter. And luckily, and then obviously that would have made their comeback a little bit more difficult. But you could see like Chris Paul was out there, him and like Russ was out there, Jokic helped. I'm trying to also remember who else was out there at that time for the Team LeBron side, because basically it was like the Chris Paul led second unit, if you will. Ben Simmons, I think, and Tatum was out there a little bit. Booker was out there a little bit, and Bones was out there kind of. Unfortunately for him, just taking up space a little bit. But yeah, so it was like a lot of that reserve team really helped mark a comeback there at the end. They were able to end that quarter tied, and you could see that on both sides. The Team Giannis side was trying their best not to let them come back, and also trying their best to score when they could, just to make sure they didn't lose the quarter. I think Trae Young had a nice no-look alley-oop to Gobert, who was actually pretty good. I talked about him maybe being a guy that wouldn't be as fun to watch in an All-Star game like this, but he was really good. And obviously playing a little hard defense in that first half. But again, in a situation like this where each quarter matters to a degree, playing defense is welcome to, in a sense. But yeah, so then that third quarter was really tight, and you could see how it was going to shape up for that fourth, because you could see if that intensity was going to stay, if that intensity started like that in the third quarter, and then, like I said, that's not even the last quarter, then you could only imagine what it was going to be like in the fourth quarter, and it was obviously ratcheted up times 10, if not more. And just speaking on the third quarter, since that quarter ended up tied, I thought they were just going to split the thing. Some people said they did. Some people said that it just got added on to the final total at the end, which I thought is what had happened. So the winning team, or the winning charity won $400,000, the other team won $100,000. I think, in my opinion, going forward, they should probably just split the money like that. I don't necessarily, not that it's fair, because life isn't fair, but just since it's for charity, I think splitting the money, in my opinion, makes a little bit more sense than just having it tacked on at the end. Because then, like I said, then there's a chance that one team goes home with $400,000 and one team goes home with $100,000, which again is more than they came there with. So they're obviously somewhat appreciative. But you could see the I think it was the team Giannis had the red on when they were like celebrating like how much money they won. Some of the guys on the team Giannis side were obviously not as thrilled about the amount that they won, and understandably so. $400,000 to $100,000 is a big difference. So obviously it's the first go around. So you're not going to get everything right on the first try. But like I said, the thought was there. And obviously in the fourth quarter, I mean there was like I said, it felt like a playoff game just in terms of the intensity, the play from Team LeBron and Team Giannis, the arguing with the refs, the Lowry out there drawing charges, which, again, not something you're used to seeing in an All-Star game, and I know it kind of just helped. That was my only issue with it, is just because it was so tight and so close, and the defense was heightened up, which, I mean, it should be, but it was heightened up to a level where it was tough to make shots. Like, that quarter felt like it went on forever, which I guess isn't a bad thing, but it was just like, it seemed like, like I said, just drew it out as opposed to just having a normal 12-minute quarter. But the intensity was there for that whole time, and most of those guys, outside the beginning, like once the starting guys came back in, I think both teams kept one reserve, and I think for the Giannis, it was Lowry stayed in, and for LeBron, it was Chris Paul, just because they were both playing pretty well, so they stayed in. And but yeah, outside of that, I mean, those guys, there was no other subs. They played for whenever they subbed in to the end of the game. You could hear LeBron when he was talking after the game. He seemed really winded, just because, I mean, they played like no real stoppages. I think they had one, maybe two timeouts in there, and like no commercial breaks, nothing. So you could see that this is not something these guys are used to doing. But obviously, with charity and a lot of stakes on the line, they were willing and able to show up and show out, and they definitely did. Even though, like I said, my issue with how it ended was how, yes, Lowry did foul Anthony Davis. That's inarguable. That's inarguable. Though they also had the controversial call with the goaltend that I think they didn't call it a goaltend. They called it a block, even though I thought it was a goaltend. But that's whatever. Plus, there was a couple other. I think they called an offensive foul on James Harden when he could have made the game-winning three, but they said even though Lowry reached in first, like he did bump him because Harden did because he reached in, but then Lowry fell back and then they went for it, and it was just like, so I know that those refs were giving. Team LeBron would have lost. Those refs would have gotten an earful on the way out, and. I mean, do they deserve it? Not necessarily, but at the same time, I understand, like, there's a lot of stakes on this to be calling, like, it's like I said, it's a playoff game. When there's ticky-tack foul calls, or, like, there's calls that you maybe don't agree with, like, you're going to get angry. I thought at one point, I forget, what was the one call? Tell me, there was one call where it looked like the entire Team LeBron was going to, like, jump the ref. Like, that's how bad it looked. Like, I thought they were going to have to give. I think it was definitely Chris Paul. I mean, but that's just how he is. But I thought they would have to give Chris Paul a tech. I think it was something. It was like a ticky-tack foul. I think it was on Lowry or Harden on Lowry. There was like ticky-tack foul, and everyone. I mean, literally everyone was like, was so mad. It was so funny just to watch, just to see. Like, I don't think these refs were what they signed up for in the All-Star game, because no, it's like pretty calm, pretty relaxed. Like, no one's really shooting free throws. No one's really getting fouls called. Like that, and then at the end you could see like every single call, like somebody was up in arms. I think they didn't. I think Team LeBron even had to challenge a call. Like it was like it felt like I said, it felt like a playoff game out there where the stakes were so important that every little thing that happened, these guys were going to be agitated by if it didn't go their way. So that part of it was pretty funny. But yeah, so back to the end of the game. So Lowry fouls Anthony Davis, and he misses. He said he missed on purpose. I don't think he missed on purpose, but in his post-game thing, he said he missed on purpose. Then he made the second one, and I was just like, that was just like a bad way, in my opinion, to end it, just because you don't want to see. Though again, it can happen in a regular game where free throws are the last thing, the thing that ends it. So that was unfortunate, just because of how good that game was and how good the fourth quarter was for it to end at the free throw line, as opposed to have seen somebody make a game winner. That was the thought process behind this, is that no matter what happens, there'll be a game winner at the end, whether you're up by 15 or you're up by 5, like it doesn't, or you're up by, maybe you're down, like you get a game winner. Just that was the thought process here. So I would just say that, in my opinion, because I think it's like, because even if you play different street ball rules, like you need to like win by 2, that kind of thing, where it's like, all right, maybe you're down, you're tied, or like like you're tied, like you hit like what would be considered a 1-pointer, but you like that doesn't affect you winning. You need to make another one, kind of thing. So I think that's the kind of thing the NBA could look into, in terms of like, it can't end on like a foul. Like someone needs to hit or you can't end on like a non-shooting foul. Like if it's like a side, it's like a reach in, or like I guess that was like a pull down, something like that. Like then you take a side out of bounds in that scenario. You don't just give them the free throws. I just think, like I said, you don't want to completely change the rules of basketball, but I just think it makes for a more entertaining game. And obviously, everyone was kind of a little bummed because that's how it ended, especially with how great that fourth quarter was. I mean, many people saying it's probably, I wasn't really paying attention to that 0-1 All-Star game where I think it was like Allen Iverson and Stephon Marbury had the East team like put the team on their shoulders in that fourth quarter and kind of brought them all the way back. I think I was 5 or 6 at the time, so I don't remember much about that. So in my opinion, this is probably at least one of the, I don't know if I want to say best or worst because it's hard to judge, but it's definitely one of the most intense All-Star games I can ever remember, and a lot of that had to do with the format change. So all in all, I would say that part of it had to be a success. Adam Silver's happy. Everybody's happy. They changed the All-Star MVP trophy to name it after Kobe Bryant, which I've been saying for weeks. But I'm happy they did it. Kawhi Leonard won MVP. I mean, he was great. He was one off, I think, the record for threes in a game. He hit 8. I think Paul George has the record at 9 threes. But he had like 30 points or whatever. He was the high scorer for Team LeBron who won. I thought if Chris Paul hit the game winner, I thought he could have potentially been the guy because he had 7 threes, 23 points. And without him, and then without his play, especially in that third quarter, but it's overall, like, I don't think Team LeBron wins, personally. Like, he helped keep that team afloat, him and, like, kind of Ben Simmons. When the starters weren't in, a lot of their scoring went through him. So I thought if he hit the game winner, I think he shot a 3, but it came up short because he had, like, Giannis or somebody come out to contest. But if he would have hit that, then I think he could have easily been the MVP. But, I mean, obviously it's a fan vote thing. Maybe they would have still given it to Kawhi. But, like I said, all in all, All-Star game was great. The format was great. It worked. They're going to keep it. I don't know if they keep the 24-point thing. I don't know if that was just a special tribute to Kobe or it'll always be like that. I don't think anybody would be mad if it was always like that. But, like I said, it was a rousing success. Everybody was happy except for at the end. And I just think this is probably, I hope this is like, for the time being, I hope this is how they keep it. Because it seemed like a good idea. And like I said, just like pick different charities for the different cities each year. I think that'd probably be a cool way to do it. And you could see how happy the kids were, how intense the kids were. They seemed like you would thought they had, well, they literally had money on the line, but like you would thought they put money on the game. That's how like into the game and how intense and how much they were up and down at every call or up and down at every shot, and just like how happy they were when, well, the Team LeBron people were when they won. You could just see how much that money means to them. And that's obviously at the end of the day what they're playing for. So that was special to see, and that obviously gave it even more intensity than just like the bragging rights of winning or losing. It's obviously those kids are there in the arena watching this all happen, so you don't want to disappoint them. So that was cool. But yeah, hopefully just the next year there can be less offense fouls called, just because. I mean, while I understand why Lowry was doing it, it's obviously a part of the game. It was like No one's going out there to see people try to take charges, and just because it could get somebody, you could get somebody hurt, and no one wants to get hurt in an All-Star game because people are trying to draw charges or do other types of stuff, or like try too hard to block shots or steal balls or whatever. So that's the only danger I have, because people are like, oh, you need to play like this in more quarters. I'm like, no, let's not go that far. Be happy in the fourth quarter was that intense, because if they play like that for 48 or how many ever minutes, one, those guys would be dog tired, and two, now you're definitely risking somebody getting hurt. So you don't want to have that happen. So have it restricted to like the third, fourth quarter, and everybody's gonna be happy. So like I said, that was a success. But Saturday night, oof, we got some stuff to talk about. And there was some controversy that went down in one of the competitions. If you don't know, then I will inform you right after this break, so stay tuned. But so we'll talk about that, talk about Friday night a little bit too, and just round out All-Star Weekend in Chicago as a whole. So we'll discuss all that stuff right after this.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Saturday night started off. We'll get to these two events in a second. We'll start off with two very good, very entertaining events. The 3-point contest had the two, I think, Mountain Dew balls or whatever you want to call them. The 3-point balls added in. They fit perfectly. It worked, even though I think, who was it? Was it Joe Harris? I forget. One of the guys almost missed it on their first go around. That was like kind of funny. But yes, that was great. The skill challenge was good. Big guys showing just how skilled and gifted they are. I mean, obviously, you've seen the game evolve from a guard league. Well, from, I guess it was early. It was like big guys with like Will and Bill Russell. It was like more guard heavy, and now it's becoming a little bit more spread out. In terms of like more wing heavy, I should say, not more spread out, more wing heavy. And then now you're just seeing in that skills competition, you're seeing. Because the finals was Bam Adebayo and Domantas Sabonis, two forwards, just out there dribbling, passing, doing all that stuff. So you just see how the game's evolving and will continue to evolve. So that was entertaining. But obviously, what is considered the star of the night, the dunk contest. Even though, like I said, I'm a 3-point contest guy myself, but the dunk contest was mired in some controversy. And the controversy was because on the last dunk, supposedly it was supposed to end in a tie, or maybe go to the third dunk off, and maybe certain judges didn't get the memo or what happened. But after going through, I guess, 4 official rounds and 1 dunk off, they went to a second dunk off. And mind you, in these other rounds, I think, up until that point, up until the second dunk off, Aaron Gordon had gotten 5 50s all the way through. And I mean, Derrick Jones Jr. had got another bunch. I think he probably got 4, and one other one that was a little bit lower, like obviously in the high 40s. But I think he got 4 50s. I don't remember exactly, but regardless, Aaron Gordon got 5 50s. Both of them had done some amazing things. I mean, the one Derrick Jones Jr. dunk, he caught it. The guy threw it up off the backboard. He caught it, jumped over the guy, and put it between his legs. That was kind of wild. The Aaron Gordon one off the side of the backboard he threw it. No, he had Markelle Fultz off the back. He caught it 360 one hand and dunked it along the baseline. That was absurd. Both. I mean, he brought out Chance the Rapper a couple times. Derek Jones Jr. had some of his own guys he had out there. So both of them put on quite a show. So then we get to the second dunk-off. So at this point, they've dunked 5 times. So this is the 6th dunk. Derek Jones Jr. goes, I think he goes, what does he go, 360? No, windmill from like just inside the free throw line. I'm trying to double check here just to make sure. Yeah, so windmill just inside the free throw line with the left. I mean, it was only a step inside the line, but still. We technically have seen that been done before because I think Levine did. That's actually how he beat Aaron Gordon. That was one of the dunks he used, but I think the one that won it for him was he went between the legs from right inside the 3-foot line. That was absurd. And I think Aaron Gordon's dunk in that at that point was like a double pump, but it wasn't as impressive as some of the other stuff he had done with the mask on thing. So you understood why, even though he may have had the best dunk of the night, you could understand why Zach LaVine won, because at the end, his last dunk was, you could argue, was better than Aaron Gordon's last dunk. So it's like, all right, that's fine. But in this case, all right, so Derek Jones Jr. does that, gets 48. So after kind of talking and deciding, because as we found out afterwards, this dunk wasn't planned. He goes up, talks to Taco Fall, and he brings him out, has him stand under the basket with the ball, and decides he's going to dunk over him. Dunk over a guy who's 7'5", and not easy to do. I think. Well, yeah, Hamidou Diallo won it last year. Dunked over Shaq, which was kind of nuts. But yeah, so he's like, all right, I'm going to dunk over this 7'5" guy. He dunks over him. You could argue whether he clipped him, didn't clip him, what have you. Even if he clipped him, the guy's 7'5". This is very difficult to do. I don't imagine any people complaining about him clipping him could actually do this dunk in real life. There's not many people alive that could actually do this dunk in real life, in dunk contests or not in a dunk contest. So that's 1. 2, if he did clip him, he clipped his hands mostly. So even if he's bent down a little bit, he's still at least 7 feet tall. So again, not a very easy thing to do. But what have you? He clips him. Cool. All right, clipped him, didn't clip him. He made the dunk. All right, cool. You think you dunk over a 7'6" guy, no matter if you clipped him or not, you win, at the very least. Well, take that back. Maybe you don't win. You don't lose. Let's put it that way. You don't lose if you do that. But apparently, the assembly judges had other plans, as they gave him a 47, which is 1 point less than what Derek Jones Jr. got, and he lost. And supposedly, according to the judges, Common and some other guys, they argued that it was supposed to be a tie. So I think in the first time, D-Wade, Common, Candace Parker gave 10 to Derek Jones Jr., Chadwick Boseman, and Scottie Pippen gave him 9s. I believe that's how it went. So then they were like, all right, cool, we're going to have it end in a tie. So then you just assumed, all right, if it's going to be a tie, then everybody just keep their same score, which would make it easier as opposed to trying to decide, all right, do I give the 10 or do you give a 10? Nah, okay, we have it end in a tie. Give your same score. So then Common gives the same score, Candace Parker gives the same score, they both give 10s. Chadwick Boseman and Scottie Pippen both give the same score, they give 9s. But then now all of a sudden you see D-Wade and his goes down from a 10 to a 9, and it's just looking a little funny in the light. That's all. It's looking very, very funny because, it's not like D-Wade would have had any rooting interest in the thing. It's not like anybody that was from the franchise in which he is arguably the greatest player ever from that franchise was in the dunk contest. It's not like any of that happened. Of course, why at all would there be reason for D-Wade to be biased in this scenario? I don't know. But yeah, so then they just looked funny apparently. I know Common said after the fact that they said it's supposed to be a tie, but apparently one of the judges didn't get the memo, i.e. D-Wade. And yeah, so then Derek, instead of it ending in a tie and then either having to go to another dunk off, or they just give them both champions, or they just decide all right, at the end of the night, who had the best dunks? And you just do a majority vote, all right, put your cards up if you vote for Derek Jones Jr., put your cards up if you vote for Aaron Gordon. That kind of thing. All right, if that would have happened, cool, fine. But don't just have him lose outright after he just dunked over a 7'6" guy. How did that math made no sense at all, and rightfully so. People were, including Aaron Gordon, were pretty mad about it because just how can that happen? How can they have that happen? Where the guy going to that round, had gotten all 50s. He does one dunk, gets a 47, which, again, I think there were other dunks throughout the contest that maybe didn't deserve 50s that got 50s, and I think that's part of the issue with the dunk contest voting, is that that some of the early round stuff you give too much credit and then you get too picky on the later round stuff kind of thing, because it's like, all right, I think the one Dwight Howard dunk where he put on the cape, which I was supposed to have Kobe but couldn't, but he put on the cape, caught the alley-oop. I think that got like a 48, 49. I think the one where Connaughton dunked over Giannis, which again is a 50, got a 50. I think his first dunk was kind of seated a little low, and I also think Dwight Howard's first was rated or scored a little low, and I think Dwight Howard's first dunk we kind of like froze in midair. In a sense, obviously he couldn't actually freeze, but like he kind of like posed and then like turned and dunked it. I think that was a little bit lower than it should have. So yes, I think that's kind of the issue, that you kind of, because it's subjective, you can have where it's like certain dunks may be higher than they should have been, certain dunks are lower than they should have been, and that kind of messes up how you view the scoring at the end. Because like if there were other dunks that got 50s or got higher scores than a 47, and Aaron Gordon jumping over a 7-foot guy, not even 7 foot, 7'5" guy, even if he maybe clipped him or didn't clip him, doesn't get a 50, then it's like, how does that make any sense? And also, people did rightfully point out that Derrick Jones Jr. in his first dunk, I believe, when he dumped over Bam, he put his arm on his shoulder to kind of give him more lift, which again makes sense. Bam's like 6'9", I believe, so these aren't short guys these people are trying to dunk over. It's not like when Aaron Gordon brought out Chance or when Derrick Jones Jr. had some of his other guys. Like, those guys are a little bit shorter, so they're easier to clear. You might not have to do the push off. But if someone if you would have pushed off on a guy at 7'5", I would not have been mad at you for that. Just because that's a hard thing to do to clear him, just straight up, just off the vert. But yeah, so that was really, I felt bad for Aaron Gordon. He said he's not going to do any more dunk contests, and if I'm him, I understand. Even if I still think Zach LaVine won the first one, at worst, he didn't lose this one. It got taken from him. Like, even if you have to go to another dunk off, Derrick Jones Jr. seemed to say he had a lot of dunks left. I mean, Aaron Gordon could have just figured something else out. But yeah, so even if you take it from, you have to go to another dunk off, you just have like a majority vote kind of thing. You can't have him lose outright on a dunk where he dunks over a 7'6" guy. Everybody in the arena was shocked. Everybody at home was shocked. All the players, everybody was just looking like, whoa. Like, how did he lose? Not necessarily you have to win, per se, but just, like, even if you want to end in tie, cool, but you can't lose on that dunk. Like, that didn't make any sense. And that's the thing, it's just like, alright, you have a really good dunk contest, probably the best one since 2016, and one of the better ones in recent memory, and then that happens. So it's just like, it just throws all the goodwill they got out the window. And it's just unfortunate for the contest itself, because obviously, like I said, it doesn't have the same prestige that it had back in the day, because most people don't even remember who wins. They remember when crazy stuff happens, or when you remember have really good dunk contests, like in 2016 with LaVine and Aaron Gordon, and then you remember when something bad happens, like this. Like, people are going to remember, like, oh yeah, the time when Aaron Gordon dunked over the tallest guy in the league and didn't win. Or I guess maybe, is Boban the tallest? No, I think, well, if Taco Fall's not the tallest, but I think he is, he's definitely at least top 2. So he dunked over a 7'5" guy and didn't win the dunk contest. It's a shame, because Aaron Gordon could have been a guy that, I mean, obviously he's going to want to try to be an all-star, but he could have been a guy, he's only, like 24, 25, like he could have been in more dunk contests throughout his career. But now he's like, if I'm him, I'm like, why am I coming back? I think he came back the year after he lost to LaVine and didn't do that well. But other than that, if I'm him, I'm like, why am I going to come back to risk getting quote-unquote robbed again? And rightfully so. So just like, that's the unfortunate part. They're going to have to do something about whether the way they judge or how they do the final rounds or whatever, just to make sure that you shouldn't lose that way. Or just maybe it's easier to determine a winner in these later rounds. Maybe you have like a horse thing where like, all right, if like whoever has the highest score through the first 4 rounds, if they both got in 50s at that point, then you have like, all right, the guy with the highest score, all right, you try to copy this dunk. If he misses, then it goes to the other guy, and like you go back and forth that way. Maybe that'd be a way to do it, as opposed to just having it be subjective to the potentially biased judges, which was, like I said, it's unfortunate for Aaron Gordon, and it kind of put a damper on the night, because the other events, 3-point contest, great. Buddy Hield, Devin Booker put on a show, both in the first round and the second round. Bertans did great too, and even like the guys like Levine and like Joe Harris who got into the 20s but still couldn't get it in just because they had guys that were even better. And then obviously like the extra ball worked. Didn't really mess up too many people's timing other than like Trae Young. I think he was a little bit slow through his rack. His round, I should say. But it was good for everybody else. It came down to the last shot, the last rack, which is obviously all you ever want in a 3-point contest, just like for it come down to the end. Buddy Hield was able to pull it out. Got the 27 to Devin Booker's 26, I believe. Hit it on that last money ball, which was cool. That's obviously what like I said, that's how you want it to go down. You want to go down to the last shot. You don't want a guy like running away with it. Though, I mean, that's cool too, just to see a guy put on a complete show. But at the end of the day, you want to see competition, and there's no better competition than have it come down to the last rack in 3-point contest. So that was great. So the competition I talked about a little bit was cool just because of, like, the big guys were dominating. I think they knocked out. Because who was the final? I know it was Siakam, Bam, Sabonis, and was it Middleton? I think it was Middleton in the first. Like the guards got knocked out. Like I know Dinwiddie got knocked out. Pat Bev got knocked out. Who else was in it? Dinwiddie, Pat Bev. Tatum got knocked out. Actually, yeah, who was the reigning champ? Dinwiddie won it the year before. So yeah, it was just cool to see like new guys come up and show out like that, and also just cool to see that contest be good. And then going back to Friday, I mean, celebrity game is what it is. If the guys aren't that good, then there's not really much you can do about it. And I think Quavo he didn't really play that well, and that was probably the one guy you had hoped for. Him and like Famous Sauce were probably the two guys that probably could have done a little bit of something. And if they weren't in, I think Famous Sauce did well, but since Quavo and Stephen A's team wasn't doing anything, that team didn't really stand a chance. Unfortunately for Stephen A, I know he's probably going to get some trash talk from Will Bond coming back this week, and also from his other peers on the ESPN platform. They'll probably talk a little trash to him just because I know obviously he seemed to be really into it. He even got attacked. That's how into the game he was, which was kind of funny. But yeah, and then the Rising Stars were just, a showcase. It's like the All-Star game if they just like didn't care at all, which I don't mind. It's like at the end of the game I think, well, yeah, they were just letting like Zion just try to get off wild dunks. And I mean they know who the people want to see both at home and in the arena. So they're just like, hey, Zion, go do your thing. No one cares. It's not that serious. I guess obviously there's no like charity or money or anything on the line. It's just a complete exhibition game. And yeah, so they just let the guys show out. It's not a fun game to watch the entire time because, like I said, there's no defense. You're just running up and down, shooting threes. Though it provides for cool moments. He has some cool dunks. Miles Bridges, MVP, threw off the one hand off the backboard. That was nuts. John Morant threw up some cool alley-oops and had a couple nice dunks. Luka had the half-court shot right before the half, I thought. I think it was right before the half. But yeah, so there's still highlight moments. And that was just funny, the meme of him and Trae Young just looking at the ball up in the air and just like being so shocked that it went in. That was pretty funny. But yeah, all in all, this All-Star weekend was great. Chicago seemed like it was, outside of it being really cold, from obviously I wasn't there, but from what I read on Twitter and what heard people talking about, other than it being really cold, everything seemed to go great. All the events seemed to go smooth. Everybody seemed to enjoy themselves. Chicago had a great crowd out there, so that was fun. The weekend itself was great outside of the dunk contest fiasco, so they have to try to patch that up for next year. It was in Cleveland or Indianapolis, one of those two. Regardless, I know the next three are Cleveland, Indianapolis. It's Indiana, Cleveland, and then Salt Lake City. So not exactly vacation spots, but you never know. I mean, Indy's hosted some Super Bowls, so they've at least been used to big events like that. The Cleveland one will be interesting just because I don't know what they'll do there. And Salt Lake City, I imagine that would be pretty cool. I mean, obviously, it's Utah. Not a whole lot of basketball players, at least, would visit Utah in their off time. But it seems like I've heard good things about it as a city, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, all in all, NBA's All-Star Weekend was a success. It was fun to watch as a fan. Just like I said, just got clean as the dunk contest, which we said coming in, and we're going to say going out. The dunk contest just got to fix it somehow. At least this one was competitive. and there wasn't too many missed dunks in there, which is obviously what you prefer. You want guys making the dunks on the first try, so that always makes it better. But yeah, so All-Star Weekend was a success in my opinion. So speaking of things that wrapped up this weekend, the XFL, its second week. We're going to talk about it, talk about how I thought it looked in the second week and kind of where it goes and like what the future could hold for the league, both this year and beyond. So we'll talk about that stuff right after this break.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So the XFL, like I said, completed second week this weekend, today, Sunday. This weekend was a little bit different than the last weekend just because the offense wasn't there the same way that it was in the first week. Like, if you look back at the first week, game scores 39, 31-19, 37-17, 20. Well, I guess take that back. The Saturday games were entertaining. The Sunday games were a little bit iffy because they were 23-3 and 15-9. But this week was even worse. You had the 27-0, though I think DC could argue. I mean, obviously the 2-0 teams, but you could argue they're the best team in the league, in this league. The other Saturday game was 17-9. Not a whole lot of good quarterback play in that one. The earlier game from Sunday finished 25-18, and that only really got good in the second half, fourth quarter kind of situation. Just because I know I watched it felt like most of that game was 9-6. Neither quarterback was playing that well up until the end. Now, in the second half, Landy Jones made some throws. Cameron Artis-Payne, formerly of the Panthers, I believe, also of Auburn, but of the Panthers, he had a great day. And then Josh Johnson and the one guy, I think his name was Spruce, who used to be with the Rams, who's on the practice squad. They had Todd Gurley there supporting him. That was kind of cool to see. But yeah, so then that game was a little iffy until the end. And the Houston Roughnecks and the St. Louis Battlehawks, that game was actually pretty good, though. Unfortunately, that was the end of that game kind of coincided with the beginning of the All-Star game, which, another quick point on the All-Star game, you got to do something about the start time. Like, obviously I understand the Kobe stuff, that I probably added more time, but the 20-minute spoken word player intro where the game didn't even tip off 8:45 is like, alright, come on guys, we don't need that much theatrics. We can just bring the players out, do the anthem, do O Canada, and just get the game started. There's no reason that they should take 45 minutes from the start of the broadcast to when the game starts, but that's a separate point for another day. But so the fourth game was pretty good. Obviously, like I said, I didn't catch the end of it, but I knew when I left the game, the Roughnecks were up. But yeah, so then this week it was just this week had more of what you figured it would be like, which is defenses kind of dominating offense a little bit. Just because there were a lot of turnovers this weekend, a lot of defensive touchdowns this weekend, which is kind of interesting. Like I said, a lot of bad quarterback play, which is to be expected. These aren't the best of the best in terms of quarterback, or else they'd still be in the NFL. But I guess outside of maybe Tamu, who just is only really playing in the XFL from the St. Louis Battlehawks. He's from Ole Miss, but he spent a year at a military college or something. Or he played a year at a military institution or academy or something, so he wasn't eligible to play his senior year. Or well, I guess eligible to play what would have been his like redshirt senior year, or however they wanted to word it. But yeah, so then that's why he's in the XFL now. I guess because he's only like 22, I think. Probably one of the youngest guys. Him and I think the one guy from West Virginia, Robinson, who got I guess got kicked off the team. So he decided just to play in the XFL just to show people he still got it. But yeah, so long story short, I mean like the guys like McGloin for the New York Guardians, who was good last week, kind of struggled today. The Vipers and the Dragons still had their struggles offensively. Well, yeah, Seattle, and I forget who the other team was, but yeah. So you kind of figured where it was going to be early in the season. The defense is going to be more on top of the offense because there's not a whole lot of chemistry. I mean, obviously it's 11 guys playing on the field at the same time. There needs to be chemistry to a degree, but like you don't have to work on like if you're like the timing of the routes and all that kind of stuff, that the things that the offense have to deal with, the defenses don't have to deal with. So in theory, at the beginning of the season, the defenses should be a little bit better than the offense, and that was kind of the case this weekend, where, like I said, there was a lot of turnovers, a lot of defensive stops, a lot of teams having a tough time scoring the ball, and I think that's going to be the biggest issue, the biggest concern if I was worried about this league going forward, is that will the quarterback play hold the league back, or will people care? Because I mean, there's going to be certain people that are going to watch it just because it's football, and they like to watch football. There's a lot of people I know. There was one, I think it was a beat reporter, I believe he was for the Eagles, but he was talking about how normally you can't watch football at home with like his wife or his kids, or his kid. I think he only has one kid. Regardless, he can't watch football with them because obviously during the season he's traveling or at the games or whatever, so you can't sit back at home and watch football with them. So maybe guys like that would be the ones that are more into the game. And obviously you see a lot of people tweeting about it last week, but it's first week, it's new, it was fresh. Obviously everyone's going to want to talk about it. Just like, is it interesting enough, and all these players interesting enough to keep people tuned in? So it'll be interesting to see how the ratings look this week, because the ratings were really good last week for the opening of the season, but it'll be interesting to see how it goes from here. And also, I guess just like who are going to be the guys that they try to market to get people to tune in to watch. I think the two guys I'd probably put them, at least offensively, because again, people prefer to watch offensive stuff, are probably, they'd have to be Cardell Jones for DC Defenders and PJ Walker for Houston. Yeah, Houston Roughnecks. Those are my two guys. I mean, PJ has back-to-back weeks of 3 touchdowns in the first 2 weeks, and Cardell has, I mean, in that first week, he was just like, he looked like he was playing, it was like a man amongst boys, just like the way he was able to escape the pressure, get out of the pocket, make throws on the run, make throws that are many other people in the league just can't make, just because like he has an incredible arm in that regard. And also, I mean, in fairness, he's one of the guys with the most success, at least at the college level, than most of these guys. Obviously, a lot of these guys were maybe smaller school guys or maybe big school guys that didn't really perform well enough to make it to the league. I mean, he won a national championship, beat Auburn. Like, there's not many people that come into the league with those kind of accolades. So it would make sense why he'd be, you could say, better than those other guys. But from PJ Walker, he's a guy that went to Temple, from Jersey. Shout out Jersey. We went to Temple. Was great at Temple, and he's like a little bit undersized guy, only like 5'11", I think. So that's you kind of understand why he didn't survive in the league, because unless you're just like elite like Russell Wilson, or you're just like really fast like a Kyler Murray is, like very few of those, or you have like incredible accuracy like Drew Brees, like a lot of those small guys don't make it unless I guess you have to be from a bigger school to at least get the shot. Like Baker, he went to Oklahoma, so obviously and he was great in college, so you could understand why he got the shot. Be like a guy like Walker, who went to a smaller school, like I said, isn't that big of a guy. You could see why he's only on the practice squad, I think, for the Colts for a couple of years. But he's another guy who kind of looks like that Russell Wilson type of quarterback. Obviously, not as good, but just like on XFL kind of level, where he's like he's running around in the pocket, or he's running around in the backfield, moving around the pocket, slipping through sacks and making nice throws on the run and from the pocket to guys. And obviously, like I said, you're gonna want to have guys you can market as like, hey, tune in to watch these guys. And I think those are the two guys that if I'm them, I would try to build the face of this league. I know Landry Jones kind of touted as like the big name guy, but honestly, I just don't. I know he's a little rusty, even though they won today. He's a little rusty. He hadn't played in a while, and also like he doesn't have that same level of excitement that the Cardells or the PJ Walkers have, just because like he's not that Cardell's that mobile, but he's not as mobile as those guys. He's not as slippery as those guys. Even though he's a big guy, and he did have some scrambles today, but he's just not, like I said, just not the same type of quarterback. So that's obviously the thing. And also, I'm thinking of, for long term, just like, how would you view this as, like, what does a successful year for them look like? Does it look like guys get back into the league and and stick there? The guys, because obviously there are going to be people, just like there was with the AAF, there are going to be guys that make it into camps, are on make it through like OTAs, mini camps, stuff like, maybe not OTAs. I think the league runs through through the spring, but make it to training camps, get those training camp invites, probably end up getting cut, like that kind of thing. Like, is that a success for the league if you have guys that make it and are tough cuts and maybe end up on practice squads, or is it does the viewership matter, or is it the league takes some of their rules? Like, I think the kickoff thing is probably one of the easiest things for the NFL to take, just because it's still as exciting as it could be, but it's just obviously less dangerous because then the guys aren't running down full speed, colliding into each other. But you still have the excitement of potential big run backs, because, like I said, the guy breaks through the line at the right angle. He's going to go down the field, and you basically just have the kicker to stop him. And they haven't broken a touchdown, I don't think, yet. But they've had a couple of really good returns, and I was like, that's the only thing I'm kind of been annoyed by with the NFL, just because every kickoff is like a touchback, and I'm like, well, that's cool, and obviously I understand why teams would do that, because you don't want to risk it. But that was an interesting part of the game, just seeing how much a good returner, how much a good returner could affect the team in a positive, or a bad return could affect them in a negative way. Like, you had a Devin Hester or Cordero Patterson, or a Dante Hall back in the day. Those kind of guys were very vital to the team, because in one play they could change the field position, or Josh Cribbs, they could change the field position, change the score. It was a cool aspect of the game. So I would hope that they don't that they find a way to get that part back in. Obviously, like I said, you got to make the player safety important, but I think it'd be cool for them to take that kind of thing. So is that viewed as a success? I'm just interested what would be deemed success for this first season. Because obviously, like I said, through 2 weeks, pretty solid, but will it have the staying power to be once it's week 5, week 6 in, do people still care? Are people still that invested? Which, I mean, it's hard to say for certain. Also, who are the people tuning in to see? And then, once the season's over, then what? It seems like they have the money and the staying power and, the national backing to at least have another season. But it's all right, is this a thing where you're going to try to make XFL stars? You're going to try to make it so that it's a feeder league where the NFL can, you can come and look at guys that maybe didn't have the opportunity to shine in NFL camps or in the preseason, stuff like that, and now you see some of their skills and you can bring them back into your camp. I'm just interested to see how the XFL is going to play this, and what they want to do in order to try to make this league successful. Just like I said, what's successful to them? What would be all right, cool. If this and this happened, then boom, this first season was a success. I'm interested to see if it's viewership, if it's player movement, if it's star power, whatever. If it's rules, like I said, them taking the rules up to the NFL, I think that'd probably be a big thing. I think that'd be a good way just to test certain things out, just to see hey, maybe this will work. And if it works here, it's all right, we bring it up to the NFL, that kind of thing. I think that'd be kind of cool. I also like the replay thing, just so you can hear the guys give their explanations. Just because when you hear things on the field, and you're just whoa, how'd they come up with that? At least now you know how they came up with that, whether you agree or disagree. You at least know, all right, this is what we talked through. This is what this guy saw. This is what the referee saw. That kind of thing. I think that aspect of it is cool. So there are definitely things the NFL could take from the XFL. But I'm just saying, like, would that make it successful? Would being able to have another season make it successful? I'm just curious what the XFL is going to view as a success, because how I might view it as success might just be like it's entertaining to watch and they get guys back into camp, as opposed to they might be more worried about viewership, about star power, about that kind of stuff. So I'm just curious what it is, because like obviously it's still 2 weeks in, still very early, but they got to figure out a way to still keep people invested week 5, week 6, week 7 of the season, and that'll be key. If they can find a way to do that, then I think this might be the league to not to compete with the NFL. That'll never happen, but at least it'll be an interesting league to stay around, or maybe even get some of those college guys. Maybe just this could be a cool alternative for college guys. They don't want to. Let's say you have like a Trevor Lawrence who has played for 2 years. He's like, all right, I'm good, I'm going to leave. And then just get a little bit of money, not a lot, but a little bit of money, still play football. But you're playing against grown men, so you get a year of playing against people that at least made it to the NFL to some degree. And then, boom, you can go into the draft that way. I think that might also be success, get some college guys in. But yeah, they also, in order to do that, this first season has to be successful. So we're thinking a little far down the line here, but like I said, we'll see how the rest of the season plays out and see how they view and see how successful it is. Let's put it that way. But there'll be a few ways to gauge that level of success. So we'll just see how it goes. But speaking of the XFL, there was a debate on that some people brought up on Twitter, just talking about, it was like I think a meme, and then that led into a little bit of debate about like, oh, should the winner of the XFL play the worst team in the like the NFL for their spot, like that kind of thing. And then like got me thinking of like how we do the same thing with college teams versus pro teams and stuff like that. And I'm just gonna give my opinion on that, and then give my opinion on like that debate as a whole and why I think it's like kind of dumb. But we would touch on all of that stuff right after this break, so stay tuned.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
XFL versus the NFL. Like I said, there was like a meme I think I saw on some NFL guys were talking about it, about how like, oh, like the winner of the XFL should play like the Bengals, or like, I guess this year it's the Bengals, but like, or like the Dolphins, or like the Browns, or like well, like, no, I'm gonna say the Browns are gonna be bad, but just like the bad teams over the years, if assuming the league's successful and continues on. Obviously, this is all contingent on that, but if it is, the team should play for like their spot kind of thing. And I was like, all right, I understand this. And this is like this is a really, really, really social media kind of debate. Because this is the thing that we always talk about when you have like really good college football teams, like, oh, could LSU beat Cincinnati, or could Alabama beat the Browns like the year they went like 0-16 or 1-15 for that matter. It doesn't really matter. Like, or like the 0-16 Lions, would they lose to like Florida at that time? I think that was like 2008, 2007. That was like really good. Or like when they have like would the Warriors lose to? I mean, maybe there's not really a dominant team in college basketball this year, but like would they lose like last year? Would they have lost? Like the Knicks have lost to like Duke, or would the Cavs have lost to like Duke, something like that? And it's just like we have this debate all the time, and I always think it is so dumb. I really do. Because if you just think about it objectively here, people. If the XFL is filled with a bunch of guys who couldn't make it, I mean, I guess they were on like practice squads or teams, or maybe they got cut or whatever, but they couldn't stay in the NFL. What would make you think that they would then be able to play and beat an NFL team that is full of guys that made it in the NFL? Like, just logically, it makes no sense. But the thing, it's like a debate that the people love to have. They're always like, oh, and I mean, in theory, it seems like a good idea. Like, oh, alright, it incentivizes teams in the NFL to be good, to try to be good. Don't just, I mean, even though the Dolphins tried their best to be bad, they still found a way to be good. Good-ish. Obviously, they weren't like, they didn't make the playoffs or anything, but they, traded away people, played a bunch of young guys, anybody of any sort of value on their team, they were like, hey, you can have him, or you could have him. They started, I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick for most of the games, who, not that he's a bad quarterback, but that's not necessarily a guy that you're like, oh yeah, we're trying to make the playoffs with him. And you're just like, alright, okay, he might win some games here or there, but it is what it is. And they end up, I think they got like the 5th pick this year, just because there was other teams that were much worse than them. Not much, but just like worse than them. And it's like, oh, okay, so that kind of thing wouldn't happen if in theory, I guess this is the whole, I think it's what, like Premier League, Champions League, one of those overseas football leagues. They have like the relegation thing where it's like, all right, if you do bad enough, then you get demoted to like the lower tier of the lower division, I guess I should say. And then obviously someone takes your spot, and then like you have to be, I think you're down for like a certain amount of time, then you can like fight for your way back, that kind of stuff. So it obviously incentivizes those teams over there to like try to be as good as you can be, because then you don't want to ever get demoted down to a lower level of competition. And I guess that's the thinking in this thing, was like, all right, we're going to have this team play for the spot of this team, and if they lose, obviously then the Bengals or whoever would get demoted down to the XFL, and then as of right now, like the Defenders or like the Roughnecks or whoever would get brought up to the NFL. And I'm like, again, sounds great in theory. And honestly, I think maybe we just need to have. We can't ever have it happen because it's not worth the risk. But they just need to do it one time just to show that this is a terrible idea and it'll never work, I think. And I think then people will like stop being like, hey, yeah, no, let's try. Like, oh, this team could be that. They're like, no, let's stop. Like, come on, guys, let's stop it here. Same thing. The way I view with like NFL guys. Like, do I think LSU this year could give who's in the well, I don't say the Bengals. And again, if they had AJ Green, I'm sorry. As good as Derek Stingley was, there's nothing he could do with AJ Green right now. I'm sorry. But let me who's got the number 2 pick? Washington? No, because Washington with Trent Brown, Chase would have done nothing with him. I don't know how those guys would. I mean, AP is still not what he once was, but they would still struggle with him. Terry McLaurin was ripping up NFL corners, so I could only imagine what he would do to Fulton and those guys. But yeah, so then I'm saying, so like, or like even like the Lions, like Matt Stafford got hurt. That's the only reason why they were that bad. But yeah, like the Giants. I mean, obviously these aren't the worst teams. I'm just thinking like some of the bad teams, like the Giants. I don't care how bad their line is and how good or bad you think Daniel Jones is, he would still have a good day, because again, they have Golden Tate, Slayton, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, Saquon. They have NFL caliber players, where again, in theory, most college teams have a handful of pro prospects on their team at any time in a given season. Like obviously, guys leave, guys come in, so the number goes up and down every season. But at best, you have like a handful of guys. Like, all right, this guy I think could be a starter in the NFL. Not gonna make an NFL roster, like that's completely different. But like, think, okay, this guy could eventually be a starter in the NFL. You got a handful of those guys. The NFL has 22 of those guys. Like, it's a very big difference. And just because like this team is really good against other college teams, they're not going to be playing against other college teams. This is a professional team with grown men in a more competitive level of play. You obviously every time you go up, like Pop Warner is easier than high school was, and high school is easier than college was, and college is easier than the pros. Like, honestly, the best of the best, it doesn't really faze them that much. They're going to always be elite. But for a lot of these guys, like, that step up is a big deal. Like, a lot of these, even the guys in the XFL were really good in high school or like really good in college, and they can't. And a lot of these XFL guys, for different reasons, could barely even sniff an NFL roster. Or at best, if they were on an NFL roster, like, say, Landry Jones or somewhere, they were like backups. Like, they weren't like starting caliber players. I think Coney is probably like the only one that like played and had like a significant role on his NFL team. I mean, obviously, he had like 3 sacks in that Super Bowl for the Panthers, and obviously, I guess once he got traded, it never kind of really materialized or whatever. But again, these guys have teams full of pro guys. College guys have maybe a handful. Same thing if you go to basketball. Like, I think Baylor's the number one team. I know Baylor's the number one team in the country right now. They might have a couple guys that are good enough to play professionally. Even if they played the Warriors right now. A lot of them would struggle to guard Andrew Wiggins. Draymond would lock down a lot of those guys. If you played the Hawks, Trae Young would drop 40. Yeah. I mean, he's doing it in college. Like, why would he not do it in the pros? I mean, they got John Collins, like, Cam Reddish used to give a lot of these guys buckets in during his high school years. And obviously, I know he's had his ups and downs this season, but again, and even kind of at his time at Duke, but again, if you talk to a lot of these like high school guys that have gone through these circuits, those AAU circuits and stuff, Cam Reddish was always the guy that gave a lot of these guys trouble. They always talk about this. I think there was a video of Anthony Edwards, I believe, and he was talking about how Cam Reddish was like one of the toughest guys to guard in high school, and he said, though it wasn't necessarily on him, he gave his team like 50 plus or whatever in high school. I think somebody else mentioned that happened to him, but like it was like he was giving those guys that buckets. And again, these are some of these guys that he'd be playing against again from his high school years. And if he were going to play against a college team. So I'm just saying, like, I feel like we need to just one time we need to set this up. Just set it up to where a professional team can play a college team. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't think it'll ever happen because, again, safety reasons and all that stuff. But if they did it one time, it could happen. The team could get blown out, and then we could just end this debate forever, and we don't have to worry about it anymore. Because it's just like I said, it's this futile and foolish debate. Like, and under no circumstance would a team of non-NFL players beat a team with NFL players. Like, that just doesn't. That just doesn't make any sense in my head. Actually, not this. Like, I've watched 2 weeks the XFL, and while some of these guys are good, and probably a handful of these guys are probably good enough to probably get back in and potentially make an NFL roster, most of these guys, especially the offensive line, would be a disaster. An absolute disaster. Geno Atkins would eat these guys alive. Like, they're struggling. Like, most of these the line play in the XFL, though, it's similar in the NFL. Line play's not that good overall, just for whatever reason, just the way kids are coached in their younger years, they're just not as good as they used to be. And if they're struggling with XFL, defensive tackles, defensive ends and stuff, what would NFL quality pass, like what would Ryan Kerrigan and Montez Sweat do to some of these tackles? Or Daron Payne or Jonathan Allen or Matt Inez? Like, what would they do to some of these offensive linemen in the XFL if they played them? Like, come on. Like, we just need to be serious with ourselves here. We need to be serious. Again, I want to see the XFL succeed, and that would drop them way back if they had to do that. Just because, again, these guys are full of teams that weren't good enough to play at the level that you're not having the guys play up against. Like, that's not impossible. You see FCS schools beat FBS schools from time to time. It happens, but you don't see them beating Alabama or LSU. Though I guess the Appalachian State did beat Michigan that one time. But that, it happens. But I don't see that happening. That's basically what all NFL teams are basically like. At worst, Alabama. And I'm just saying, like, no FCS schools beating Alabama. I don't want to say no. Maybe North Dakota State. That might be it. The only team that would have a shot. And I think don't they play Oregon next year? That'll be a good game. I'll be tuned in for that one. But yeah, so like that, like, you need to take the best North Dakota State, and they still probably don't come within like 2 touchdowns of Alabama or like LSU or Ohio State or Clemson, one of those teams. Take your pick. And I'm just saying, guys, the debate not worth it. Don't like we can skip that. So I wish we would just stop that, because it doesn't, like I said, it just doesn't make any sense. It's never going to happen. There's no point to even waste our time discussing these kind of things. Though, again, in fairness, I just spent 10 plus minutes talking about it. But just for the future, we can skip out on that. But yeah, so switching gears, there was some doubling down from both the Astros and from the MLB commissioner this weekend in terms of the defense. In terms of the press conferences and the things the Astros players had to say. And I just wish all of them, the commissioner and the Astros, would just stop talking until the season starts. Just stop talking. You're not making anything better. And I'll explain why I feel this way right after this break.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football, from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
GSMC Podcast Network. So, Rob Manfred. Now, again, I understand. Technically, he's the commissioner. Not technically he's the commissioner. He's the commissioner. And technically, that means he works for the owners. So, he's not going to come out there and publicly bash the owners' press conference and all that stuff. Which, again, I get that's technically his boss. But at the same time, for him to, he was interviewed by Carl Ravitch, and then obviously he had like some sort of press conference today, kind of talking about some things. And obviously, of course, you have to answer a lot of questions about the Houston Astros, because that's like the biggest story in baseball right now, and in all honesty, it should be, and it will be until the Red Sox thing comes out, and then that'll maybe, hopefully, for the Astros and their players and that franchise will kind of pivot some of the attention away from them towards the Red Sox. But again, we don't know anything about them yet, so we got to wait and see on that. But like I said, until that happens, it's all eyes are squarely fixed on the Astros. And with that being said, they have decided to not do the best that they could with that, and obviously Manfred has helped, because he said that in his conference today, he said that he doesn't believe that any Astros employee or player escaped punishment, and thinks that the reaction from the public and from the fans is the best punishment for the players, which, sure, but also you could punish the players yourselves so that now they have double the punishment. That is an option. And I think in the interview with Carl Ravitch, he stated that was an option that they thought about, but there was like no real precedent for like suspending players or like taking titles away. And also, I think they put a lot of it on the GM, because I think the GM got the memorandum about detailing like what they couldn't do in 2017. I think I think in his official report he said that they never really like relayed that information to the players. So even though obviously they knew what they were doing was wrong, they weren't like in his eye, they weren't necessarily given like the specific guidelines of what it was that was wrong with what they were doing, and because of that, I guess you can't punish them, blah blah whatever. And I mean, that's kind of a bit of a cop out, because again, if you're cheating or you do something illegal, no one has to tell you it's illegal for it to be bad. Like, you know it's illegal, and I mean, you try not to get caught, so I understand that aspect of it. But again, if it's illegal, it's illegal. It doesn't matter if someone tells you or doesn't tell you. Like, these guys knew what they were doing was illegal. Like, they didn't have to worry about that. And also, I think the biggest issue, honestly, with all this, which I mean, it's unfortunate that he can't come just out and say this, but basically, what was going to happen is if he tried to suspend any of the players, like the Players Association was going to come in, there would have been a lot of grievances, a lot of dispute, debate, and a lot of things back and forth. And I think that's honestly what the league just didn't want to deal with. They hoped that, hey, if we just issue this, suspend the manager and the GM for a year, fine them $5 million, take away some draft picks, whatever, that'll be good enough, and people will just forget about it. And unfortunately, the fans will let them forget about it, because any team that went up against the Astros feels cheated, and the players will let them forget about it because they feel like, all right, the players kind of skated, and that's why they were breaking out so vocal against them. And obviously, the Astros players kind of fought back. And I know Correa was one of the big guys that kind of had comments to say based on what was said from, I think, Cody Bellinger and some other guys based on what they said on Thursday, I think it was. And obviously, Cody Bellinger said stuff Friday, and other people have said stuff before then, after then. It doesn't matter. People are going to continue to say stuff because, again, they feel like the guys didn't get punished enough. And I mean, it's fair for them to think that. If all the players basically skate on this, like I said, the title's not vacated, they're going to give the rings back, they're going to give the trophy back, there's no asterisk, nothing, all right, the fans and the players will always remember this, but, will that, if they, like I said, if you don't have specifically, Jose Altuve was involved, or Alex Bregman was involved, or Correa was involved, or this person wasn't involved, that kind of thing, it's all right, they're all just guilty until... they're not even until anything. They're just guilty. So for forever, they'll just be labeled as cheaters. And then, like I said, it's going to be, or as I talked about in other podcasts, it's going to be hard for people to take anything they do from here on out serious. And obviously, I guess that's a punishment enough per se. But also, just the public ire shouldn't be the only punishment they get. That doesn't seem like a good punishment. All the fans are gonna hate them now, and you gotta. I think Manfred talked about seeing their faces and see the way he was speaking about the situation. You can see that they're remorseful or whatever. And I'm just maybe. I don't know. It's hard for me to judge remorse, and there's a lot of people or can claim to be remorseful for things that they did that they aren't really remorseful for. I mean, you see people, I think everybody in our life has apologized for something we didn't really want to apologize for, and we kind of just give some sort of half-hearted apology, and then we just go on thinking we were right about what we did. And I mean, and seeing as the players for themselves generally went unpunished, you could see why maybe they would think that. Like I said, I'm not going to judge that on them, but if people believe that, they have a right to believe that. Because they didn't get punished. So it's why am I supposed to believe that they all of a sudden, now they're just going to be oh, all right, what I did was bad. No, if you do something you don't get punished for it, very rarely do you then understand the error of your ways and are remorseful for that. And obviously the biggest thing was that, not the biggest thing, but one of the big things was that Correa said, I think it was yesterday, so Saturday, that the reason why Altuve didn't take his shirt off, and this is 2019, which They claim they didn't. The MLB claims they didn't cheat. No one believes that, and I mean, understandably so. But he claims that the reason why he didn't want his shirt ripped off is because he had like a unfinished tattoo that like looked bad or whatever, so he didn't want the world to see it or whatever. And I'm just like, okay, say that was true. Like, I'm not gonna call Carlos Correa a liar. But say that was true. Why is that being brought up for the first time now? Like, isn't that something like either A, Altuve could have said at any point prior to Saturday, or B, that would have been out or somehow would have been a known fact by now? Because obviously, I mean, you could see a lot of, I mean, maybe he's not a social media guy, but a lot of people post like when they're getting the tattoos done or when they're done getting the tattoos or what have you. And from the research that people seem to do on social media, he didn't have any pictures of that tattoo. Well, then again, it's not his business to show us his tattoos. It's not necessarily a thing that he has to do. But at the same time, it's like, why is this coming up now? If this is 100% a reason why he didn't want his shirt ripped off, why is this coming for the first time now? And it just seems like, all right, now they're just, like, either you think, either this, I mean, again, I'm not going to call him a liar, but it's just like, it just seems unlikely given the circumstances and the allegations that are placed upon them. And I'm just like I've already said, all they had to do was apologize, say we messed up, say we got caught, alright, you got us, and then just go on about it. Don't try to weasel or try to be like, oh, this is why we did it, or this is why this happened or that happened or whatever. Like, that's just making it look worse. And or just like don't attack the people back that are mad at you, because again, they have a right to be mad, because to many people they feel like you cheated them out of a championship, or it's like you cheated the game of baseball as a whole. So again, if people want to be mad, let them be mad. There's not really much you can do about that, but don't come back and attack them. Like, you can't be the Astros and be like, hey, like, you can't go and attack the guys or say like we don't think it impacted the game or like we won, however we won. Like, that kind of stuff is just it doesn't look good, doesn't sound good from the Astros perspective, and it doesn't make them look good. I mean, at this point they already look bad, so who cares? But it just doesn't make anything look better. And then obviously with the unwritten rules of baseball, you expect them to get plunked a lot this year. But then like Manfred talked about how he was gonna kind of crack down on that to make sure like there's not any situations like that. And I'm just saying, like, if players that throw at the Astros, whether they explicitly say it's because of the cheating or not, get suspended, and none of the Astros players do, oh my lord, the players may run Manfred off his job. Like, he can't do that. Like, if you're not gonna if you're not gonna judge them harshly or give them the proper penalty that people think they deserve, all right, let the players handle it on the field. That's, I mean, you said a part of their punishment was having to walk around with this and people know about it and all that fun stuff. So all right, if now that the players know about it, they're going to handle it the way they see fit. And obviously that means throwing at them, because that's just how baseball works. They throw at people when you do something they don't like. So you know it's going to happen. But I'm saying, if you crack down on them cause I think Dusty Baker kind of came out, and I mean, again, Dusty, you got to know what job you're walking into. But he was like, he wanted to he was talking about how he wanted to make sure that his guys were safe and all that fun stuff. And I'm like, yes, you don't want any of the Astros players getting hurt, per se, like getting hit in the head or getting injured or stuff like that. But at the same time, you know how baseball works. When people aren't happy, they throw at you. That's just how this game, that's one of the quote-unquote unwritten rules, as they like to say. And there's going to be a lot of teams that are very mad at the Astros, so if they get thrown at a lot, like, you can't just, you kind of just have to deal with it. You kind of just have to accept it, that's just the thing. So, like I said, if Manfred tries to crack down on those guys for their trying to give the players the punishment they believe they deserve, then it's going to be a disaster when the players get suspended. I guess not necessarily the players get suspended. If they get any sort of punishment weighed against them. And I think that's kind of where the league is stuck. 'Cause you can't just let people get hit and do all that fun stuff, but you also not fun stuff, but you can't just let people continue to get hit and hit and hit. But also, like I said, you can't crack down harder on those guys than you did on the players themselves, because then that'll look really bad. And so, like I said, this is really all bad. This is probably worst case scenario when this was found out, like in terms of how the MLB thought this was going to go. 100% has to be the worst case scenario. Like, you do a punishment, you don't think it's enough, and everyone's mad, everyone's angry, everyone's mad. The Astros kind of don't seem that remorseful, and then and everybody, like, it's just like, it's not going away. Like, it's going to hang over the entire season, and maybe every season the Astros play from here on out. And again, that doesn't even bring us to the Red Sox, who also may have done the same thing. Now they're gonna have people mad at them if things are found out to be that things went badly with them. If that comes out to be true, then it's only going to continue to grow. And that's, again, when you have scandals like this, you kind of wanted to die it and extinguish it as quickly as you can, and it doesn't seem like this one's going away anytime soon. So hopefully, for the Astros' sake, well, they're not going to stop getting asked about it, but they just need to come up with better and uniform answers to this. And I don't know, because Manfred's in a tough spot. He's the commissioner of all the teams. He's not just the commissioner of the 29 teams that aren't the Astros, so you can't just come down and say, like, it was bad. But again, defending the Astros too hard at this point is, either, I guess, at this point, I feel like both situations are kind of stuck. Like, you kind of can't backtrack on it now, but I just hope you realize that, from Manfred just realize that everyone's going to be mad at him because you didn't do anything. I just hope if he's cool with that, then alright, it is what it is. But if he's going to try to patch this thing up or make it work, it's not going to end well for anybody. So let's hope that whatever he does with the Red Sox thing, it goes over better. Because if not, again, people are going to try to get him fired from his job. And I don't think he wants that. I think he likes this job. He wants to probably win it. He didn't expect to have to deal with this when he took the job, but I don't imagine he wants to be out of a job. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, honestly, I wish the Astros players would just stop talking. Just, like, give no comment. At this point, that's better than saying the things they're saying. They're getting people more mad. And Manfred just has to stop doing press conferences until the Red Sox thing comes out, because he's not helping the Astros case or his own case at all. So we got to move past that. But coming up after this last break, we're going to switch gears to college basketball. And with the season winding down, conference tournaments will be happening very soon. Most teams only have like 3 or 4 games left in their regular season, at least. We're going to talk about some of these top teams and how important are these conference championship tournaments, or these conference tournaments, I should say. How important are these tournaments for some of these teams? Because they're more important for others than some, in my personal opinion. But we'll talk about which teams I think it might matter to, which teams it's like, hey, if they lose, they lose. It doesn't really make a difference. So, talk about all that fun stuff right after this break.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
GSMC Podcast Network. So, like I said, college basketball season is coming to a close. Most teams only have about 3, maybe 4 games left in their season. And with that, that means conference tournaments are right around the corner. And that means that March Madness is almost here, and then obviously then that means that everyone's going to be very excited to be able to talk about their brackets. But more importantly than that, you have some teams in the standings that I feel like this conference tournament may be very, very important for them. And obviously, these rankings are going to change by the time you hear this, because obviously the rankings change on Mondays. But yeah, so based on the top 25 right now, so you got Baylor, Gonzaga, Kansas, San Diego State. Louisville's going to drop because they had they just lost 2 in a row this week, one to Clemson and one to Georgia Tech, which brings up another point that I hadn't really touched on much on this podcast, but I've been meaning to touch on, is the fact that this year is weird, which is another reason why the conference tournament may or may not matter for certain teams, just because like so many ranked teams, especially highly ranked teams, are losing to unranked teams. Like, it's like absurd. The amount of times that's happened this year, just like, and again, it kind of shows there's no real dominant quote unquote team in college basketball this year, which is why so many people think different teams could win it this season. But yeah, so then because of that, I'm like, all right, so you have these ranked teams are going to be playing unranked teams in their conference tournament, because again, that's how these things work. And because of that, there are, like I said, there are some teams that I think this conference tournament would be big in terms of how people view them. I should preface that by saying how people view them heading into March. Because obviously, most of these teams, if they lose early in the conference tournament, like, it's not really that big of a deal. They're still going to make the tournament and all that fun stuff, but just like, take San Diego State, for example. They've won every game this year. They're 26-0. They have a road win against BYU, who is a solid team this year. I think they're 21-7. Second in the what conference is this? They're second in the dang, I messed up. I think Mountain West. Is that the conference where Gonzaga's in? I think that's the conference. But regardless, they're second in that conference, like I said, behind Gonzaga. No, it's not Mountain West. Mountain West is where San Diego State is. So which one? Oh, it was West Coast Conference? Yes, West Coast Conference, excuse me. I got them too confused. But regardless, so BYU is a good team. And I think they also beat Iowa on a neutral site early in the year. Beat Iowa neutral site. And that's obviously a team that's going to make the tournament. So yeah, they got some quality wins. Obviously, the rest of their schedule's kind of a little but they're a team that, like, okay, so say they come to the they come into the conference tournament. Say they're 29-0. I think they have 3 games left. So 29-0, and say they lose in like the second or third round. Does that drastically change the way people view them? Because I could argue yes. And this is a team that's like been one of the best teams all season now. So like I said, they've won 26 games already, 26-0, and then turned to the Ken Palm rankings, who I've talked about a bit in the past, but just like it's a very advanced efficiency ranking just to see how you would do against an average college basketball team. They're 4th, 8th in adjusted offense, and 7th in adjusted defense. So again, they've been one of the best teams in the country all season. But will people care if they go and lose and they don't win their conference tournament? I could argue yes. Because many people say, like, oh, they haven't really played anybody. Obviously, like I've talked about, many ranked teams losing to unranked teams this year, so it wouldn't be that shocking to me if something like that happened. Because it's conference tournament, these things are weird. Not always the best team from your conference wins the tournament. At least the best team from the regular season doesn't always win the tournament. But I'm just saying, people will look at San Diego State differently if they lose, especially depending on who they lose to. That'll obviously play a big factor. But if you look at a team like So you have a team like Maryland or Penn State who are in the top 10 of the NCAA rankings, but they played in arguably the best conference in college basketball this year. Well, not arguably, in my opinion, it has been the best. I've talked about that on this podcast, but they played in the best conference of college basketball, a conference that may probably going to send like about 10, but could very well send up to 12 teams to the tournament. So if they lose in the third round or they get quote unquote upset, it's not that big of a deal because they've already played a gauntlet. And the teams that potentially could lose to aren't bad. Like, these are still tournament caliber teams, so the people may not have the same effect if they lose. So I'm just saying, like, for certain teams it does, and certain teams these tournaments are going to be big not only for their confidence but people's confidence in them. Because that's when you have some of these, I don't want to say mid-majors, but these like non-Power 5 conference schools, you want to see them make it through their regular season with as few losses as possible. You want to see them win their conference tournament outright. Same thing like a team like a Dayton who has a guy, what's his name? Obi. I'm trying to remember what his name is. Obi Toppin? Yeah, Obi Toppin, who could very well win the Player of the Year. But their team, I think they've won, 14 in a row? They only have 2 losses on the season, both early in the year. But they lost to Kansas, one of the best teams in the country. So no shame in that. And I think it was they only lost by 6, so that's not a bad loss at all. And they lost to Colorado, which is, again, they were ranked at the time, and it's, again, by 2 points. So not bad losses, but, again, they're a team that plays in a quote-unquote subpar conference, with being the A10, compared to, like, the other leagues. So then it's like, say they lose to, like a George Mason or a UMass in their conference tournament. Like, that might be a big deal to people, just because, like, they have a guy that's supposed to be a Player of the Year candidate. They've won 14 in a row. People are going to want to see, like, all right, how much faith can I have in Dayton? And obviously, conference tournaments are weird, but people won't care about that. If they're gonna have their mind made up that, oh wow, they can't even beat this. I'm expecting them to make it through the tournament, and where they're going to eventually have to face good caliber teams. I mean, you never really know how the bracket plays out, but they're going to have to face good teams at some point to win a championship. And I think, like I said, there are certain teams where these tournaments could matter more than others. I mean, I've never been a big conference tournament guy because, again, like I said, the best team in the regular season doesn't always win the tournament. It's a one-game playoff, so you never really know. I'm saying for Baylor or like Kansas, like, them winning the tournament doesn't really matter. Same thing like a Duke or Florida State. That doesn't really matter per se because, again, they're going to make the playoffs, and the people know overall their school is very battle tested in terms of getting to the tournament often, having good quality teams. Like, people aren't going to worry about that, but you have a Gonzaga who has had times where they've lost early rounds. I mean, they made the championship not that long ago. Within the last couple of years. I know they lost to UNC. I'm trying to remember, because that was right after the Villanova UNC. UNC came back the next year and won it. I'm trying to think, what was that, 2016, 2017, somewhere around there. But yeah, so they've been to championship not that long ago. But still, they've been a team that kind of has always underachieved once they got to the tournament. So the conference tournament might matter for them because you need that confidence heading in. Because if you lose, like if you're San Diego State and you lose for the first time in your conference tournament, while it's good to get that first loss out the way, now you're just like, in your head, you're just like, oh Lord, what if everything we've done up until this point doesn't even matter? And now they get nervous in the tournament, then they lose in like to the 8th seed or they lose in like the second before, or they lose in like the Sweet 16, something like that. Well, I mean, Sweet 16 is still pretty good, but you get what I'm saying. Like, they lose early in the tournament, earlier than people expected, and it's just like, oh. So for now, it's like that 1 year Wichita State, I think, went like, what was it, 35-0, and then they end up losing to Kentucky in the second round. Again, that was a terrible matchup. They got screwed, but still, all a great season for nothing. And a lot of it came down to, like, oh, how tested are they? And, I mean, you could have all these advanced stats and all that stuff, and it's just like, at the end of the day, people are going to look at, like, all right, who do I have faith in, and why should I have faith in them? And these conference tournaments are going to be big for proving for some of these teams like the Daytons, San Diego States, even kind of Gonzaga's to a degree, just how much faith should you have in them heading into the tournament. Because again, like if a Baylor loses, or like a Kansas, or like I said, Maryland, Penn State, those kind of teams where they're even like a Duke, it's like, yeah. I mean, Duke almost lost to UNC not that long ago. They needed some help in order to win that game, and mainly help from UNC because they make some free throws. They lose that game. Those again rivalry, but whatever. This Duke team is not, that North Carolina team is not that good. Even though Cole Anthony was healthy, he's not. The team's not that good this year, at least. But yeah, so they almost lost to them. I mean, they've lost to Clemson, who like only ever beats like good teams. Apparently, like they've beaten Duke. I think they beat Louisville this week. They've beaten UNC at UNC. I'm pretty sure. It's like. So it's like weird stuff this year that's been happening. You know what I'm saying? Because of that, you need to go into the tournament if you're looking for that team that like, all right, who's going to be the team I'm going to ride with? You need to have faith in them. And losing a conference tournament does not inspire that kind of faith, in my opinion, personally. So that's what I'm saying. Generally speaking, I'm not a big like, oh, you need to win your conference tournament for me to believe you. But obviously, that's a precursor to the NCAA tournament. So if you can handle the pressure and make it through, that's why I think, because Oregon, I think, won the Pac-12 last year, and then they kind of parlayed that into that. I think they almost made it to the Elite Eight. I forget who they lost to, but it was like a really good game. They had a shot, and they probably win if like Bol was healthy. But yeah, it took them a while after he got hurt, and then also they got hot in the Pac-12 tournament, and then boom, they parlayed that into a decent run. And that's the kind of thing that the tournaments can use to inspire that kind of confidence. If Dayton goes out, dominates their conference tournament. If San Diego State goes out, dominates their conference tournament, then all right, you're gonna have that confidence going into the NCAA tournament, as opposed to they lose in like second, third round, you're gonna be like, oh Lord, like what was it? What if it all was just for nothing? What if you had this great season, these long win streaks, blah blah blah? What if it was all for nothing? And that's that's just kind of the danger some of these teams are in. That is the danger some of these teams are in. So, like I said, the season's coming to an end soon. We'll know how it's all going to play out. We got a couple more weeks left before the tournament starts back up. We got a couple more weeks left before the conference tournaments start up. So we'll see how it all plays out. But like I said, this has been a weird year. A lot of upsets. A lot of good teams losing to quote-unquote bad teams. So nothing would really shock me in these tournaments. But like I said, if you're one of those teams that are kind of a surprise, you could say, this year, people didn't think they were going to be this good, this conference tournament would be a big chance for you to show people around the country just like, hey, I'm just as good, if not better, than you think I am. So we'll see if these teams can take that advantage of that opportunity or if they fold under the pressure. Well, like I said, we'll find out soon enough. But that'll do it here today for me on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. I want to thank you guys, as always, for listening. Just want to remind you, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you're always on top of when we drop stuff. Make sure you never miss an episode. If you could as well, also please give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review. Will be very appreciated. And also, obviously I know social media is very popular. A lot of you guys are probably on there. So you can find us on there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you are, we are. So we can talk and chat, communicate, we can discuss. You can tell me why Dayton's going to win it all. You can tell me why San Diego State is a fraud. All that fun stuff we can talk about on there. Tell me why you like the All-Star game, because again, I thought this All-Star game was one of the better ones we've had in recent memory. But all that fun stuff we can talk about on social media, so find us there. But yes, that'll do it for me here today. I've been Chris Blades. Thank you for your time. And as always, until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.